Welcome to Intuition Unleashed, a revolution in personal liberation. The go-to podcast that helps you access intuitive guidance combined with mental health and spirituality. Let your intuition guide you and unlock a life of true liberation. And now your host, Becc Nelson.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Intuition Unleashed. It's a revolution in personal liberation. I am so excited today to be joined by one of my really good friends, Patty Lane. And Patty, welcome to the show. We've been wanting to have you on for a while now.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So Patty and I have known each other for at least the past 5 years, and we had an opportunity to be connected in person. I should share some of those photos were we in Dallas? It was Texas.
Yeah, we were in Fort Worth. It was more what we call mid cities, in between.
See, you can hear a little bit of her Texas twang. Thank you very much, but it's adorable. I do not have that, and so when I was flying in, I was warning everybody that there's a Yankee coming into Texas. So I love that Patty's on today because this is actually a conversation that's been needing to be had for a couple of years now, and let me tell you why. So the context of this episode is that we're going to give you some very practical advice about the everyday use of crystals and how you can use them for your own healing and guidance. And so what I love about this is that people think that crystals are sort of woo-woo and not accessible, and it's something that you wouldn't necessarily use, or when people say they work with crystals, a lot of people don't know exactly what that means and how easy that could actually be. So one of the things I love about Patty and her story is that she was kind of the same way when she first got exposed to crystals and how they can be helpful in guiding your healing journey. So I do want to talk about Patty's story because she was one of those people that was also like, I don't know about this. What is it that you want me to do? We'll tell this whole story because you too can use crystals in your everyday life, and it doesn't have to be over the top woo woo and you have to meditate before them, although all those things can certainly help. Now, I was just telling Patty, I'm going to tell this really funny story about when we did meet in person. Patty kind of has this little traveling crystal arrangement that she has all these beautiful pieces and I have several of them that I'm looking at right now. And this is one of them that I use every day. And I have them all in my desk, and they sort of tell me which ones want to be used for the day. And we can talk a little bit about that too. But so Patty actually has a bachelor's degree in metaphysics, and she is a licensed master Reiki teacher through the International Center of Reiki Training. She is the author of a beautiful book that I suggest everybody read called The Angels Orchestra. And she calls it a little book that takes you on a big spiritual journey, which she's going to share with us today. She's also a speaker and a spiritual transformational life coach. Her mission is a spiritual one, and her passion is teaching women to develop their intuitive gifts so they can heal and empower themselves. And this is exactly what we're talking about today. Her bachelor's degree from metaphysics is from the University of Sedona, which is one of her favorite spots, I know personally. She also lectures and teaches workshops based on her professional experiences and the teachings in her book that she's going to share with her today from the Angels Orchestra. So she talks about how crystals and metaphysical experiences came into her life when she was really searching for holistic ways to heal after some health issues, which we'll talk about today, and which left her paralyzed and very sick. So I'm really excited to have you on today, Patty.
Thank you. I wish we had 2 hours to talk because, man, there's so much I would love to share with your audience because that is kind of what my purpose in life is to empower women in what women and men, but it's mostly women that are attracted to me in these mystical and magical ways, and taking the woo woo out of a lot of this, explaining this in layman's terms, because that's what I used to do in my corporate job. I took complicated technical information and translated it into layman's terms so that my teams would understand what I needed them to do. So with all that technical kind of analytical background, when crystals came into my life, it was like, yeah, prove it to me. And that's how I have ran my life for the last 15 years since I was so sick from a stroke that left me paralyzed. It was always like connecting with source and saying, prove it to me. So I have some pretty cool pictures to show y'all today also about before the the the, the method that I'm going to talk about and after the method. So you actually, so that was kind of proof, right? But let's go back to talking about I had a stroke at age 53. It left me very, very sick with adrenal fatigue. And also, I was paralyzed on the left side, and I was looking for ways to heal. So I found myself in Sedona, Arizona. It may have been like the first trip we took. Last time I checked into the timeshare that I have, they said, "Do you know that this is your 28th time to visit here?" And I kind of said, "Yes, I do."
Wow.
First time, maybe in Sedona, walking along that main street there, and there was a crystal store. And I was really trying to heal my heart. I was going through a divorce in addition to being really, really sick. And so I thought, crystals, interesting. Maybe I'll just go in and get a crystal healing. So I walked into the store. I paid the lady for crystal healing, not knowing what to expect. And she pulled out this little device. And she started using this device in front of the crystals until it said yes to her. So it was a pendulum, right? So anyone that maybe uses a pendulum, I thought, that's weird, but what do I know? So she hands me this crystal and she asks me to go sit in the corner. I didn't even go into a special room. I didn't even lay down on a bed, into a corner. And she told me, I want you to breathe into this stone and just sit here and try to clear your mind. Don't pay attention to the people in the background. It was a very small crystal store. So I did what she asked me to. I went over. That stone was an apophyllite. And I put it up to my heart. She said, put this up to your heart. She could tell I needed to clear my emotions and the stagnant energy in my heart. And so she said, imagine with your mind as you're taking a breath that that breath is coming in through that stone into your heart. And when you breathe out, it's going back out through that stone. And you breathe in and you breathe out. And so I said, okay. So I sat there and I did that for about a minute and nothing happened. But after about 2 or 3 minutes, the crystal actually began to feel like a magnet. And I could just feel, I literally could feel gunk being released. I cried. I began to cry. I was letting those emotions go. And I could feel her, even though my eyes were closed and I was concentrated on this. I, I, I could, I knew she was standing behind me with that pendulum and she was wanting to know if I was done yet, right? And so after about the third time that I could feel her presence when she would walk up. And after I had cried and I'd settled down a little bit, softly and silently crying in the corner, she said, okay, you're done. And so I went over to the counter. I can't remember if I paid beforehand or after. I think I paid before the session. And I said, thank you. And she said, if you've got any salt, I want you to go back to your room and just soak in a salt bath, right? And so I did. And I went to sleep. And I got up the next morning and I literally felt like I'd lost 20 pounds. I felt better. I felt lighter. And I went back to that store that morning and I said, I want to buy that crystal and take it home with me. And she said, well, that's a store crystal. It's an apophyllite. Can't sell you that one, but here's one that I can sell you. Now, here's something else she told me that I thought was strange. That was a smaller apophyllite. She said, I want you to spend time breathing into this stone, every day if you can, for 10, 15 minutes. And she said, and I also want you to take the point on that crystal, and I want you to put it into the tip of your fingertips for 17 seconds. And I thought, all right, I'm going to do it. I feel better. I'm going to do it. And I couldn't get that pendulum off of my mind. I could not get that off. And I asked her about that. And she said, well, here, I'll show you how to use this. Pick you one out. And so I went home with a populite, the very first crystal I ever owned. And I did what she asked me to do. Shortly after that, I began teaching Reiki, maybe within a year or two of that. Um, I realized that she knew I was a healer before I ever knew I was, and that putting it into my fingertips was opening up my chakras in my fingers and my hands, that I was going to be running energy. Um, so fast forward, and I'll tell y'all, I mean, I started teaching Reiki. My students started asking me, can you find me stones? I was at the fair doing things, and that's how I got into the crystal business. My Reiki students kept asking me, can you find me this? Can you find me that? So I started carrying crystals to Reiki classes, and it just grew and grew and got a little bit bigger. I always wondered, how did that work exactly? How do crystals really work to help us to heal, right? It all goes into like quantum physics. So if we're talking about energy with a fixed point, crystals are a high vibrational energy, and it's a fixed point. Crystals' energies do not fluctuate. Crystals are made out of minerals. They're made out mostly minerals. We are mostly minerals, but our energies fluctuate. Our energies fluctuate according to our thoughts, what we're thinking, if we're sick, if we're well. Our energy systems fluctuate depending on where we are, and our emotions affect our energies. If you take a fixed energy, so I'm thinking about, has anyone has ever seen tuning forks? When you have a tuning fork here and you have one here, if they're of the same tones or the same vibration, you can hit one and the other one will vibrate. It is the same thing with us. If we, as a very similar energy, and clear quartz is closest in its structure to the human DNA of any crystal. Have you heard that before, Becc?
I have, and I want to talk about the area I live in, because you've talked about that a little bit, but go ahead.
So if we put a fixed vibration that's similar to ours, and our vibration, which will match that, if we put those two things together without intention, not a whole lot happens, right? Because our intention to match our vibration, to try and reach this higher level of vibration that these crystals hold, requires our intention. Now, if you find yourself in a room of amethyst or a room of quartz or in a mine, you're going to probably maybe feel the energy. You're going to feel tingly. A lot of people walk around crystals and they can feel that energy. And there are certain crystals that have an effect on me when I'm not even opening up, right? It's kind of like if you're giving a party and things are kind of hectic, and a person walks in to that party that's really calm and centered, our energy affects those around us. So crystals will affect us, but to effectively use a crystal as a healing tool, it takes our intention. As humans, we are somewhat able to manipulate energy with our minds. If you stop and you think of Emoto's work with water crystals, is anyone familiar with that? Emoto proved that when we set our intention into water, it changes the structure of the water crystals once that that water is put into a freezer and they become almost like snowflakes. And certain intentions, like such as gratitude or love, will create that same structure of water crystal over and over and over again. It's vibration, the vibrations of words, the vibrations of thoughts. And these crystals, when we open and we say, I want you to help me heal, or I'm breathing into this stone with my imagination, which our imagination is one of God's greatest gifts. If we can imagine it, we can make it happen. But when we use that imagination and focus on an area of our body, and it doesn't even have to be our heart, that we are going to heal ourselves. We are opening up our energy centers to match a higher vibration. Does that make sense?
Well, let's break it down more for the people that are listening. So when you talk about intention, you're saying, I intend to receive some sort of healing from this. And what people don't understand is that you actually could actually set a negative intention as well.
Yes. Yes.
So it's really important to make sure that you have, your mind is clear. And if you're going into it saying, "What? This is ridiculous. What am I doing here?" That would also impact the intention, the
Yes,
energy that you're
because you've
working with.
closed off your energy centers. I one of my favorite words is possibilities. What if you are wanting to begin to work with crystals, what if, just what if you opened up your centers and you set your intention that you were going to work with this vibration of this crystal, with what this crystal is known to help with? What if, right? So, fast forward. I am at the fairs. I'm selling crystals. I have like 12 tables full of crystals at the fairs. I was going to do a talk on how crystals help us heal, right? And I got to thinking, I know it helped me, but how can I prove this in some way to someone that doesn't understand this, or someone who needs something, right? And I was sitting there thinking, and my friend Wayne was over in the corner. He has a Kirlian photography machine. And so I thought, wow, I have a big hematite quartz heart. It's not an apophyllite, but I had a hematite quartz heart. And I'm going to go get Wayne to take a picture, or a picture of me, and then I'm going to breathe into that stone for about 2 minutes because I didn't have a lot of time. The fair was fixing to open, people were coming in. I'm going to have him take a picture of my aura, and let's see what happens, right, Becc? So I don't think you've even seen these pictures. I may have sent them to you.
You did send me them, and I can
I
post
have
them too
proof.
afterwards.
I have pictures, and I'm telling you what, people are blown away when I do my talk. So if you can see this picture, can you all see it?
Yep, right
This
there is
is
good. Yep.
this is before I breathed into the stone. And then I breathed into a hematoid quartz. It wasn't even an apophyllite. About 2 minutes and it changed to this. So here is before.
Wonder
Here
if you're,
after.
can you
I
show them
will,
like, oh,
I
good.
am going to try to put them side by side.
Okay.
Okay, so before, I know with these backgrounds. Okay, so before is on the left. Can you see the difference in the light?
So can you tell us a little bit about what that camera takes a picture of for people who don't know, and then what we're looking at here?
Yeah, Kirlian photography takes a picture of the aura and the energy. So it's an aura photo. Um, so what we're looking at here, what I want you to focus on is the light around my heart. So can you see my head in the top of these?
Mm-hmm.
So in the first one, there's really nothing around my heart at all. I've got white in my solar plexus. If you look at the second one, the heart is lit up all the way down to the solar plexus. That was just for with 2 minutes.
Hmm.
And my intention when I sat down wasn't necessarily even to heal. It was to open up, and I wish these were better, easier for you to see. But this is what I want you to see: is that is not there 2 minutes ago.
That light. I'm going to actually
The
post
light.
these
It is the
afterwards.
light because
Yeah.
vibration is light. And this gets into our aura when we, even if we're just breathing into the stone on our heart or another area of our body, um it's going to affect our whole auric field.
So
It affects
your
everything.
intention when you sat down to do this was what, share how you kind of, what was that intention?
My intention was, I want to see a difference. I
Okay.
want to be able to show my audience when I do this talk a difference so that they can see with their physical eyes what this might do, that it raises your vibration in your aura, and that it would show them, hey, this is after 2 minutes. There's a change there. I may not be able to explain that change exactly, but there's a difference there, and it's white. And white is a very high vibration in an aura photo. It's one of the higher vibrations. The white is almost like the angelic vibration.
So when you sat down to do this for the first time, you were experiencing this healing, but your intention was just to kind of be open to see what happens?
When I was at the healing in Sedona,
Right. Yep.
I wanted my heart to be healed. I wanted to heal the grief in my heart. I was going through a divorce. I wanted to just heal my body. I wanted to get my energy back. What I really wanted was my emotions to be healed.
And you felt sort of an immediate difference, but it probably took a while also.
I
That's-
breathed into that crystal for about 30 minutes and I really felt numb, a little bit numb afterwards, but I'd been crying. I'd been releasing. But it was the next morning when I woke up and I thought, oh, oh, I don't have that heaviness in my heart as much.
And then how about the you said there was some paralysis too. So talk about that a little bit.
Oh, that the paralysis was from my stroke. That I had, and that happened at work. I was just walking down the hall, and my husband at that time had had a stroke. So when I started feeling like I couldn't walk on the left side, I sat down and I Googled symptoms of a stroke on my computer. I was at the office, and it said if you hold your arms up in front of you and one of them keeps falling down, then you're having a stroke. And so I hollered at the guy across the hall from me, and I said, would you take me to the hospital? I think I'm having a stroke. He said, no, I'm not. I'm calling you an ambulance right now. But yes, so that was a stroke. I later found out that stroke was caused by a bad pharmaceutical drug. A lot of people died from that pharmaceutical drug. It was a prescription that I
Wow.
was taking at that time. But it took, baby steps, right? I was looking for ways to heal myself. I had changed my diet. I was practicing less stress. I wasn't working 70 and 80 hours a week after the stroke, but still, I was looking ways. Recovering from a stroke is a long process. How can I help myself to heal? And that's when I became really interested in a lot of the holistic means of healing. I took a Reiki class because I wanted to heal myself. 90% of the people that take a Reiki class with me, they don't come into Reiki saying, hey, I'm going to teach this or I'm going to become a Reiki practitioner. People come to Reiki to learn it in order to give it to themselves and to heal themselves. It's a very high vibration. It is, we can even sit here and we can say Reiki in some ways is similar. The vibrations are similar to bringing crystals into your lives. They're both very high vibrational, intentional things that we can do. It's energy. My degree's in metaphysics, so it's all about energy. What is metaphysics? It's energy. And then we can also add another layer to that, which besides the healing, another layer to that of mystical experiences, which is what I wrote my book about, Beck. You've read my book.
I have. And so you keep saying, you imagine the crystals, the intention matters, your imagination matters, but then people will think, and we're like 3 minutes before our break, right? So this might be a longer answer to the question, but so people might think, well, if I'm just using my imagination, then how do I know I'm not making it up?
I always say, show it to me again. When I have things come across in front of me, I'm a skeptic, and I say, oh, I saw that. Show that to me in another way. Show that to me in another way. Show me that again. I'm connecting with source, with my higher self, with God. And that's when the real magic begins to happen, Beck. That is when these mystical experiences can begin to come into your life. And I know this is about crystals, but I can't even talk about this without also talking about magical things that we can invite into our lives.
Mm-hmm. And what I've always been taught is that you say to yourself, well, let's just say for a moment that we allow ourselves to believe that what just happened really did happen. And what would happen if that was real? And can we make it happen again?
Show me the magic. Show me the magic today. When your feet hit the ground, I am open for magical things, for wonderful things to happen. Show me those synchronistic things that are going to blow me away.
The really beautiful thing is, as we continue to have very practical advice, is that you now use that same dowsing method that was used for you to pick out some crystals. And when we come back from the break, you're gonna kind of give us a demonstration of that, how you use that to help other people, and how I ended up taking home an entire table of crystals when we were together.
I would love to show you how that was gifted to me to be able to do that.
And I'll tell the story about what happened that day when we come back from our break in 2 minutes. We'll be back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the second half of Intuition Unleashed. And today we are joined by my friend Patty Lane. We've been having a wonderful conversation about practical uses for crystals for personal use and for healing. And Patty's been sharing some stories with us that help us to understand how we can use these in practical ways, and how we can ask the crystals to demonstrate what they do for us, because sometimes we can be a little bit skeptical. So Patty, first of all, I wanted to share you talked about clear quartz. This is my wonderful clear quartz pyramid, amplifying the energy of everything else that's around it today. So I always have this in front of me, which people probably don't know. So many crystals in front of me. The ones that I love the most when I'm doing my podcast are all the skulls, because I feel like all the skulls are about the wisdom and knowledge of all of our ancestors that are sort of helping me to share this information on this podcast. They're supporting us. When you told your story at the beginning part of the session today, you talked about when you went to Sedona and the woman used a crystal for dowsing to pick out the right thing for you, to also show you when you were done with the healing.
She used a pendulum to douse some crystals.
Oh, that one's pretty. So you actually did this when I thought it was really cool, because you did this when we were together, and you used it to ask, this was your intention, show me which crystals whoever's in front of you needs today. for their guidance. So I would love for you, you said that you would kind of use that today and show other people how they could use it. I don't know if people are familiar with the word dowsing, but you can talk a little bit about that and then show people what your magic is, because that's what helped me to the story that of us in person is that you chose a bunch, and then of course a bunch of them spoke to me, and you had created an invoice for me while we were sitting there, and it was like a hotel room in Fort Worth, I think. Picked out so many of them. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and you sent me the invoice, and then I sent it back with like a payment. But what I didn't realize is that I had also copied my husband on the invoice. And I was like, uh-oh, and now he just knows how much money I spent on these crystals while we were here. Oops. We all kind of had a good little
Making
laugh about
themselves known. They were going to be sitting in your home, so they were saying, "Here."
it. We had a good like laugh about that.
It was so much fun. I talked about how that woman in Sedona, the healer, used that pendulum with the intention to choose a crystal for me, right? And I kept thinking about that, I went home with that crystal, and I went home with a pendulum, and would stand in front of the mirror, and I would try to talk, and it just wouldn't move for me, and it just wouldn't move for me. And then one day, boom, it did, right? And I began to use it, to find answers. As I, progressed in my Reiki studies to begin teaching and learning how, reading cards and learning how to get in people's energy, to read their energy and to feel their energy. And I am very much an empath. I began to use a pendulum to get yes no answers for them, to get answers for someone else. It just made perfect sense. And then I decided I'm going to douse the crystals for other people. Dowsing is using a pendulum, or rods, the rods, uh, to find things. So I was finding crystals, choosing crystals for people. So at the fairs, I have about 70 different kinds of tumble stones. And those are what I douse. So at the fairs, people come up and I ask them, "Do you want a crystal reading?" And they say, "Well, yeah, that sounds like fun. I'm the only one that I know that does this in the area." And I'm doing for them exactly what that woman in Sedona did for me. I ask them for their name. And when they say their name, I'm opening up my energy systems. And my intention is to connect with their energy. And then I ask out loud, "Show me the crystals that Sally needs." And I use my pendulum over those open stones. They're all laying on the table, boxes of them open, pretty boxes, and it will trigger. What I call a trigger is show me yes. So a yes is a trigger. If it's not for them, it will just swing back and forth. And the crystals, because I'm so familiar with these crystals and I've been dousing these stones for 10 years now, they tell me a story. They tell me a story. And when certain crystals trigger for someone, I know what they need to work on. So if a
Based.
lot of blue, so very simplistic, we can look at chakra colors and colors of crystals. And we can say if certain colors trigger, that is probably like if blues trigger, that's probably communication. It's putting thoughts into words. They're a speaker, they are a leader, they can't find their voice, right? Anything to do with the throat and the throat chakra. Because a lot of your blue stones, like lapis, sodalite, apophyllite, those actually are healing stones for the throat. So we've got, different colors are associated with different chakras. So, but sometimes, I'm very intuitive, and I'm clairaudient more than I am clairvoyant. And sometimes I'll hear a different stone. for someone,
Hmm.
just as I'm in their energy and I'm dowsing for them. So when I get through, I, I use a little chokuray, a little clearing thing that we learn in Reiki to break the connection with that person, and I go on to the next person. And it's very interesting because at the end of dowsing those stones for someone, they might say, "You're exactly right. I am a speaker. I sing. I'm a performer, and I'm always working on." It's really interesting how often that validation comes. That my higher self, which I'm connected with a pendulum, and connecting to their energy and asking what they need is resonates. Um, and before I want to talk about, gosh, what's a good way to use crystals? You've got that beautiful pyramid. It's setting in your room. It's
Workspace. Yep.
spreading its love over your room. But bracelets are a good way to use crystals. Jewelry is a really great way. Tumble stones. Um, yeah, having them in your home. But there's lots of ways that we can incorporate crystals into our lives in very subtle ways where, you know, uh, if lepidolite and black tourmaline trigger, I know that person in front of me is an empath. And I know that they are probably having anxiety and panic attacks because lepidolite contains natural lithium. And lithium is very relaxing. It's the mineral lithium. And then black tourmaline is one of the best stones for empaths to wear to not absorb other people's energies or to lose their energies.
So do
So I
you do
know
you have some in front of you right now so you can kind of show us some
the
crystals right now?
only things that I really have in front of me, I did not pull out a lot of crystals. I have a hematoid quartz because I knew we were going to be talking about that. Um, and I have that beautiful apophyllite. But other things are not here. I have a citrine, and it's got points, so I have the points protected. Citrine is solar plexus. If you kind of look at it, it's a golden color. This one has a lot of inclusions in it. Citrine is a solar plexus, so if a whole lot of the solar plexus stones would trigger, I would ask that person if they're maybe an artist, if they're, that's our creative center, or if they're working on psychic abilities, because all of that is in the solar plexus. Even if they're manifesting, if they're working on manifesting some things, because we actually manifest from the solar plexus. If the red stones and is this what the red stones and the black stones, if those start triggering, or if someone is attracted to carnelian, carnelian can also be a solar plexus, but it can also be for the root chakra. So if a lot of the root chakra, the dark red, the black, if those kind of stones trigger for someone, I know that that person is carrying some fears. That
So when you say trigger, you mean you getting a big
yes.
reaction from yours.
Mhm.
And if it's not something that they need, it'll sit still.
It goes back and forth. It just kind of swings back and forth, and then when it gets to the next stone that they need, it will it will it will trigger.
And I've seen you do this. You're very fast
It's very
at
fast.
doing it.
I mean, I've got 70 stones, and it's like just running it up and down those stones. They're about, um, but I love it. I love being able to do this. I love being able to do this for people, to introduce people to these stones. And then I especially love it when the younger girls come back and they have a bag of tumble stones that they've collected, and they come back and they look at me and they say, "I don't go anywhere without my stones. Thank you so much. They help me to feel protected." I feel, because most of these young, we have a whole generation of extremely sensitive souls that are in their, that are younger, in their 20s and 30s, and and bless their hearts, they're having panic attacks. They're ending up in the hospital. And anything that we can do to, as someone who's a healer, to help them to empower themselves to to get through the day without ending up in the bathroom overwhelmed. What can I do to help them? How can I help them in some way? I can teach them Reiki. I can give them a Reiki session. I can teach them about stones. I can
So how
teach
could
them.
let's talk to them about the practical use of this, because not everybody has a Patty like I do, Patty. Um, how can we help they go into a crystal store? What can they start to do for themselves so they can pick up on that energy and what they might need?
I say that they just look at those stones and see if something calls to them, because our body knows what it needs. Our energy knows what it needs. And and I can't tell you how many times that somebody will come in and they'll maybe pick up a tumble stone or one of my hearts or something, and I know what's going on with them just by what they picked up intuitively, because they'll pick it up and it'll feel. They're a very feeling energy, a very open energy. Um, and and what comes into play as well is their intention. I'm going to use this crystal to help me with my anxiety, right? That is intention. That is saying, I'm going to match my energy to what this crystal is, through entrainment, right? In training that energy of that higher vibrational crystal. Some of it can also be, we're telling ourselves, I'm safer with this. I feel empowered. I feel safe. This is giving me the courage. And it's a combination of a lot of, yes, crystals have an energy. They have a energy that we can entrain our energy to, but there is just this belief system of, I'm going to be able to do this. I'm going to be more calm. It's those affirmations. It's that we began to be more mindful, just simply by studying energy and learning about our energy.
Listening to this
How
podcast. That
exactly?
might be the gateway for some people.
Yes.
Okay.
There
So
are layers, so many layers to healing, and it begins with maybe opening up that belief system and saying, wow, I have some belief systems that I may not even be aware of. Um, some belief systems that could be holding me back. Are those valid belief systems? Perhaps I need to take a look at that belief system and see if there's truth in that. And if not, I'm going to explore a little bit, right?
so people, let's say people go into a local crystal store, or are there there's things in nature that they could also use?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We actually have crystals which ground us. Petrified wood is one of them. Does that not make sense? Petrified wood, a tree. Grounding ourselves. Oh, when you get into studying grounding and taking your shoes off and walking in the grass,
Mhm.
touching a tree, there is a science behind that. It's not just some woo woo thing. There's actually a science behind that. There's a great video out there called, I believe it's called The Grounded. And it's kind of the science behind grounding ourselves and how that actually affects our body. I sleep on a grounding mat. You said grounding, and it's like, oh yeah, let me tell you about grounding. Um, these are holistic things. These are things that our ancestors knew, but we've forgotten. Uh, Herbs. Our ancestors knew, traveling across the prairies, you know, they knew the herbs that were the medicines, which a lot of actual pharmaceuticals are based on herbs. Yeah, Beck, there's so many things that we can explore. I love that word explore.
Well, that's important because sometimes you can let go of needing to know exactly and just saying I'm open to whatever the possibilities are.
Hmm.
So now we're talking about how small practices and just allowing yourself the intention of being open makes you more open to what can come in.
Hmm.
So, okay, so let's go back to the practical piece. You walk into a store or you're walking outside, and what are you drawn to in the store, outside, etc.? I know one of the things that you talked about is that you love. I'm in New England, and we're very close to the White Mountain Range, and I know you told me that that's one of your favorite places as well.
Yes, I go up there and it feels different. It feels like crystals. And then I found out, the first trip up there, there's crystal mines all over the White Mountains. It may be one of the most, mined areas. And it's like I can feel it feels like a breath of fresh air. It's like you feel different. Um, and yes, I love that. I love to go up there. Sedona feels different.
There is
Sedona,
a whole different set of crystals, right? But there's a lot of clear quartz up here
yes,
in New England.
yes, yes. Um, when you begin to kind of work with energy, with frequencies and your energy, you will learn and become more sensitive to energy. I guess that's how I want to put it. You'll become more sensitive to energies. You'll become more sensitive to how your body reacts to things. I sometimes I teach on the fly at the fair kinesiology, the body sway technique. The sway our body sways for yes and no, because we can use our bodies just like a pendulum. And that's another way that you can choose crystals. And I just say, relax your knees, stand up, relax your knees, connect to your higher self, ask your body to show yourself yes, and then ask your body to show yourself no. And it is amazing. Have you ever noticed when you're in a room full of people and someone comes up to you and maybe they don't have good energy, right? And you automatically kind of go back, right? What if someone comes up to you and you really want to listen to what they have to say? your your body's going to go forward. That's not just a listening thing. That is in like energy attracting like energy, and energy repelling energy that is unlike. That is an energy thing.
We have so many listeners that are experiencing high levels of emotional stress, particularly around the holidays, which is in 1 week, believe it or not. So, what are some examples of what could people do today now after they get off this call that are dealing with emotional stress?
um Besides getting you maybe a rose quartz crystal and practicing breathing into that crystal, I really I'm very big on living a mindful life, paying attention to what kind of energy we allow ourselves into. um just for today, and the Reiki ideals, just for today, don't worry. Just for today, be kind, because that takes your mind off of you and puts that focus on someone else. Practice gratitude. Gratitude is huge. Gratitude can change our entire life. Um, you know, Practice joy. Do have a list of joyful things that you can look forward to. So many of us just go to work. Believe me, I know that was my life, was working 60, 70 hours a week. We have to have things to look forward to in our life. Make a list of some place that you want to go. and work towards going there. Put yourself in as important. We, as mothers, as employees, as wives, a lot of times we forget about ourselves. We forget about ourselves. Do something every single day for you. Every day, whether that's buying a Starbucks drink that you like, something to bring joy into your life. And then do 2 things a day to bring joy into your life. We need so much more. I mean, there were times when I was on every depression medication in my younger years that I could be on, especially after I went through the change. Um, I will be 73 next year. And I have people tell me all the time, oh my gosh, Patty, I thought you were younger. You act so much younger. And do you know what I tell them? I say, it's because I'm so happy. I live a simple life. I am so happy. And I can share this information and teach people. And that's infectious to others.
So one of the things that I think is important is that crystals are not going to heal us. They're not going to do it for us. And that goes back to that word intention. You have to have a clear and higher intention in order for them to do their work.
Yes.
So
yes.
one of the things that they can do with anxiety in particular is to hold that rose quartz. I keep wanting to do this, right?
Yes.
Hold it in front of their heart.
Yes. Yes. And have a spiritual practice. This whole podcast, and it looks like most of the people who do podcasts, this is about empowering yourself, because someone else can't do it for you. Connect and ask, please show me how to be happy again. Show me how to be happy again. Show me a little bit of magic. Help me.
Magic has come up a lot. So we just have like 2 minutes left, and God, that went by so fast. So what's one takeaway that you'd want listeners to remember?
That if we are living disempowered lives, and we just feel like we've given all of our power away, I want you to know that you count, and that you have that spark of God, of the divine inside of you, whatever and whoever that is, and that it is time for you to fan that spark into a flame, whatever that means for you. But you have to do it. You can't you have to take that move. You have to take those steps to
Empower yourself. Mm-hmm.
Empower yourself.
So Patty has graciously allowed any of the first 5 people that message her from the email address in our show notes, she will actually douse a crystal for you, for those first 5 listeners. So do that, because I certainly have done that in front of her, and I have more bracelets than I care to tell you about. So many of them from Patty. Thank you, Patty, for sharing that energy with us today. I love sharing you with the audience, because you've certainly guided me, and to see Patty douse those crystals in person is truly magical. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all this with us, Patty. We'll have to have you on again for a whole different discussion, and yet the same discussion.
We'll talk about my book next time.
Well, you do tell this story in here, which is a beautiful story, and I do encourage people to get it, but there are some very practical, more guidance in your book as well.
Yes.
And that's also in the show notes.
Yes. Yes. I lived a disempowered life. It's about empowering yourself. And gosh, Becc, it's been so much fun.
Thank you for coming on today. I hope everybody gets a copy of your book. Thank you so much, Patty. So in 2 weeks, we'll be back, because next time is New Year's Day on January 1st. So we will be back again live January 15th. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Intuition Unleashed. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. But before you go, we have one little challenge for you. Most of us have sneaky little habits that hold us back and trip us up. So why not take this not at all uncomfortable quiz to find out what you do to derail yourself from achieving your goals and how you can call yourself out on your own BS. So get to know your self-sabotage specialty and take the first step towards getting out of the way of your own success. Just visit https:/becknelson.com/quiz and take the quiz now. That's becknelson.com/quiz, and we can't wait to see your results. As always, we'll be back next week with more Intuition Unleashed. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening.